I mean, I think the things that are coming are like so big that it's hard to even imagine, because we're just viewing it from like the perspective of like, if it just happened immediately. I could easily see there being like a time where the world is like falling apart because there's just simply not enough jobs. When we get to the point where we're like half of the world is choosing to live forever, like we're gonna have to really like decide what does it mean to live a meaningful life, or like what does it even mean to be like alive, or what's the purpose?
Is there a too far for you that you wouldn't be willing to get on board with in terms of technology?
I would ultimately do it if everyone else was.
What do you think makes us human, and could machines take that away? My name is Simone Leone, and welcome to Meaning Making Machines. Today, I am really excited to be interviewing Kyle Tai. Kyle is a futurist. He is an expert in the worlds of NFT and crypto. He's made a ton of money in those spaces and has lived kind of an unconventional lifestyle. I'm actually recording this intro before he gets here, so I don't know exactly where our conversation is going to lead. But I'm really excited to talk to him and possibly have some disagreements with him about technology. As you might know, I feel very concerned about where the world is headed with AI. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel really skeptical about technology and the leaders in charge because of what it's already done to our lives, our attention span, our ability to think deep thoughts and make great art. I've noticed that. But Kyle is a good friend, and he's also somebody that I disagree with on a lot of these things about. And I just really wanted to take the time to interview him to really understand him better, see if he can convince me to have some more pro-technology views. And I'm really excited to ask him about what he thinks the future will look like, because he has a lot of thoughts about that. And I'm really want to know what he thinks, if we're going to have chips implanted in our brain, if AI is going to take over the world. He's also lived kind of an unconventional lifestyle. He went to go live in New Orleans with a bunch of anarchist friends, and I'm going to ask him a little bit about that so he can explain it better than me. But he was living outside the bounds of traditional society, working odd jobs here and there, and living with some people that had radical views about the world. And eventually he started to get a little disenchanted with living that way. He started to get really interested in futurism, and eventually he left. He went to college for a little bit, but then he dropped out and started working on NFTs. And his first big NFT project was hugely successful. He worked with another artist, and I think they used AI a little bit. We'll talk to him and we'll get the details on that. And he also, I think the project, it reached a trading value of $1.5 million. And more recently, he also created a shitcoin, or an altcoin, if you want to be less crass about it. And that one reached a market cap of around $7 or $8 million. So I want to ask him about his life experience, what led him to have these views, and also how he feels about technology, if he is as concerned as me, if he sees the future as being bright or dark. Kyle has asked that we keep his project names anonymous, which is valuable in the crypto NFT world. So thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy our interview. Kyle, thank you for joining me on the show. Thanks for being here. We didn't expect that we'd be matching, but it'll be interesting visuals.
Yeah, I put it on last minute too. I was like,
yeah, somehow you intuited that we would need to blend in with this space and each other. I wanted to start, I think there's so many things that I want to get to in this conversation about your views on futurism and technology and the future, but I'm also really interested in just your life story and how you came to be the person that you are and believe the things that you do. And I was wondering if you could just start off by talking about you dropping out of school and going to live.
No, I didn't drop out.
Oh, you didn't drop out. Okay, I missed.
But might as well have been, because I was pretty checked out.
And when did you leave? When did you move to like how old were you when you left home?
I was 20.
Okay, you were 20.
Yeah.
And what were what were your beliefs at the time that made you want to leave home and live with a bunch
It was pretty
yeah.
like teenage. I was just like reading like beatnik poetry and just like listening to punk music. But before that, I got really nostalgically into like 60s hippie kind of stuff and like kind of like emo music. And from a young age, I just never liked school, never liked being in there. I was just like opposed. And I think I remember in 8th grade, I was like, I'm not going to go to college or take the SATs. And everyone was like, yes, you will. And I'm kind of like stubborn in that way. And then I went to high school and I was able to kind of skirt around it and go to independent study. And then right when I graduated, I was just like peace.
Yeah.
And just went like hitchhiking and moved to punk houses and was trying to like live alternatively, which led me to New Orleans.
What were the kind of things that you believed at the time that made you want to live alternatively, or like what did that actually look like in practical terms?
I was like essentially trying to remove myself from capitalism, and like I didn't really know a real way you could like protest against like the machine.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll just drop out and maybe find people who want to build like alternative ways of living. So there's that. It was like a lot of it wasn't very like thought out. It was just like, I think this is cringy, or like I'm opposed to like this way of living. I mean, I grew up in Marin, so it was like, it's not the most statusy of like rich places, but it is definitely like embedded in the culture where you want to be rich and succeed. And so I just was like, I just didn't vibe with it.
Yeah. But was there any other ways that you were protesting against capitalism, or was it just enough to not buy into the 9-to-5 normal path that everyone wanted you to go down?
Yeah. I mean, I was around for like Occupy and that kind of stuff and like went to protests, but the main way was just like live communally, like dumpster dive, like don't work at a dead end job.
Yeah,
kind of
on purpose. Yeah.
Was mostly my attitude then. I like where I'm at now is like I eventually like rebelled against that mindset, but at the time that was like my MO and everyone around me. I think that was kind of like a big generational reaction to like, I don't know. I think in the 2000s and like the late 2000s, it was kind of like a very materialistic time. It was very like brand and like pop music. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I remember the Occupy. I remember like being in New York at the time and thinking that this was gonna turn into something big, but then nothing really ever happened, and everyone felt kind of confused about what they actually wanted to happen.
Yeah.
And I mean, who were the people that you were living with at the time in New Orleans? Like, what kind of things did they believe in? Like, how did you guys end up differing on your beliefs?
There was like a few different camps. There was like sort of the newer kids who had moved there right after Katrina, who were kind of like volunteer activist kind of types. Sort of like pragmatic, like anarchists, who are like, we're actually going to like build new, I don't know, like mutual aid organizations kind of stuff, and like build like networks of houses that all help each other and like put on shows. And when I moved to New Orleans, it was like the first time I found actually what I was looking for, where it was like, whoa, there's like actually people living like alternatively successfully, at least for like a little bit.
Yeah, was everyone pretty young who
Yeah.
was doing that? Yeah.
Everyone was like between 20 and like 35. But it was like we got there and it felt like we had fallen into like a pagan renaissance of sorts, where it was like everyone was in a brass band and we're parading around, and like everyone was like kind of hot. So there was like, it actually felt kind of real because there was like hundreds of people who were doing this.
Wow.
And like,
and you guys were all like, you lived in a house with like eight or nine people, right?
Yeah.
And then you guys were all connected to these other people who were
the
living.
other houses that were
And
doing that.
and what was the guiding principle? Was it just dropping out of capitalism, or what? You said that we're pragmatic anarchists. Like, what does that?
Yeah, there
what
was
does
some
that
people-
actually mean?
There was like some people who were like actually doing stuff, like they were like doing like food not bombs
Mhm.
kind of stuff, like they were like serving food and maybe doing like housing justice kind of work and protesting. And then there's people who are just like, I mean, this is always kind of like the camps of the left,
Yeah.
where it's like there's some people who are like, you fix the world by like tuning and turning on and dropping out kind of thing, and like healing yourself and awakening, and then like you change society that way. And then there's another camp that's like, we need to like fight
Yeah.
or like actively resist kind of thing.
And what camp were you
I
in?
was like, I bounced around.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of like that.
Yeah, no, I get that. I
Yeah.
sort of can do that too. And then you said you started to, like, I'm assuming people who were in those communities were against technology in certain
Yeah.
ways because of the element of capitalism tied to it. But how and when did you start to feel differently about technology?
I mean, I think I always kind of liked technology, but I like was like turned myself off from it because I kind of like just dropped out from like the contemporary world for like a few years. But then I think it snuck its way back in when I got an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like on Instagram all the time. And then I think I was like partially influenced by like Zoomer kids, where they were like, they seemed to embrace all this stuff more.
Yeah.
When I feel like people my age were like always have like a conflictual relationship to it. I mean, I think that's kind of come in more with younger people, but our generation was like really like, I'm on the iPhone, I use it all the time, but I feel like guilty about it, and like, or like on social media. So I think I remember having this time where like my girlfriend at the time was like really kind of criticizing me using my phone so much, because we had been working at a firework tent,
Mm-hmm.
like where we were just posted up for like 10 days selling fireworks in the middle of nowhere. And like most of the time I like really was just like, okay, there's nothing interesting around here. I'm just like glued, essentially, for better or for worse. And she was kind of criticizing me for that. And then in that moment I realized like all the people who I think are doing anything exciting are like these people who are like always posting all the time, like on Instagram at the time. It was
Mm-hmm.
more popular. And I think when I realized that, I just sort of threw in the towel in a way, because up until that point I had this like on and off relationship with like having a smartphone. Just like, I'm getting like a dumb phone.
Yeah.
But then I did that one more time and I was just like, I can't, I'm done. I'm never going to do that again. Like I just, I embrace it. And then I think, I'm trying to think of that time. Meanwhile, yeah, I feel like I was being exposed to this whole world of like people who weren't just like anarchist punk kids who were just like,
Do you mean through just social media?
Yeah.
Yeah.
who were like, just I thought were cool and like smart. They weren't like inherently like pro tech or anything, but they weren't like everything, like any like new tech is bad. And like, so I think I just sort of let myself embrace it more. And then I've come to a more like, I feel like a more nuanced place now, but at the time I was like so over the New Orleans scene that like, I think I kind of treated being like a techno yuppie as like a punk thing where I was like rebelling.
You were rebelling again, yeah.
I mean, I'm not like proud that this is what I do, but for some reason it's just how I live.
No, but I'm interested because I guess I want to understand more how you and then you sort of got into the NFT world after you left New Orleans and possibly got sick of living with a bunch of other people.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of, it was kind of like a weird path to get there, but yeah, I was like living in in my old like commune and being like, what is the singularity? And like, that kind of stuff. And I eventually left New Orleans to, I mean, partially because of that attitude, but then also to go to school. And I moved to LA. Mm-hmm. And then I was going to school. I wanted to study like futurism or just like there's like a few like programs for that. Just like the study of like trends and that kind of thing. But then I found crypto and it kind of hijacked my brain.
Yeah, well, how did that happen? How did you find it and why did you like it so much? And what year was this too?
It was like 2020 or 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the main reason was I was like, or not the main reason, but a big part was just like, I can make money from this. Mm-hmm. I mean, my other interest is just like memes and like internet culture. And there was starting to be like, I mean, it's like kind of cringy now, but like Doge and like that GameStop thing, like kind of initially like reeled me into it.
Yeah.
But then when I dove deeper, I was like starting to find things that actually aligned with my values. There's this group called Friends with Benefits that is a DAO, which is like, it's a decentralized autonomous organization. Mm-hmm. They were kind of like, at least when I first saw it and the way that they messaged, they were kind of being pitched as like a digital collective of sorts, like a worker-owned collective, but for like digital companies. So I was like really excited about that. I was like, what if like DAOs can like take over like everything and everything can be like cooperatized and or communalized, and that kind of like that definitely like reeled me in, and it's the first people I started meeting in the space. So I sort of had like an optimistic view of like crypto types. Mm-hmm. And then
like what was the thinking? I mean, just because I'm coming at it from someone who like doesn't know very much, but like, what was the thinking behind all of the decentralized stuff? Was it because you might have been afraid of like governments controlling, or what was the thing that they were resisting against?
They weren't. I mean, they probably were. They were kind of more coming from a place where like. So essentially, a DAO is like. You're given like a vote in order to like, in the most like practical sense, like you could like, if a majority votes for like this code change to be pushed, then it will be, kind of thing, or like.
Is that kind of like Wikipedia works, something like that? Yeah.
But in a more like decentralized, where it's like, on chain, like it can be like seen like, all the votes like that came, and it's also a way to govern like. Like a group, like a shared bank account. Mm-hmm. So you could be like, we have like $100,000 and like, this is how it's actually going to be used. Yeah. Like to pay out like the workers, but it's like only will be paid out if it's voted on. So it kind of gives more control to the people who are involved. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, it kind of followed the same trajectory of like most crypto projects, that it just like, it had good intentions, but it just couldn't be pulled off. Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of has the same trajectory of like most like democratic things, where it's like it ultimately has like a lot of, it's really hard to run something collectively.
Yeah, it's like there's this maybe utopian vision behind it, but then people have issues and that kind of gets in the way.
Yeah.
Was it did it feel...
It was like, it's like if you grabbed 100 people and you're like, let's run like a successful tech company or something. And it's just like, most of the people don't have the right mind to like lead a tech company. So it just kind of fails from like the average of the group, like pulling it down.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like sad to see, because you want to think that, I don't know, you give more power to the people, it'll do well. But maybe that will work in some things like running a grocery store. Or
it's just like a food co-op or something. Yeah, but there needs to be some sort of leadership.
Yeah.
But then there's always the issue of people being corrupt. And then you're trying to like avoid that by having this communal space where you try to run things, but then that also might not work either.
It kind of like drags it down. So that kind of brought me in. And then also I always thought of NFTs in a really positive sense, where I was like finally, like my artist friends can like sell art. And it's just like, it's in like this frenzy of like people valuing how much value, or like how expensive it could be. So like you release something and people are like thirsty to like trade it. So that was like really exciting when it was popular, because it was like...
Are they not that popular anymore?
No, not really.
So you kind of got in during the right time and a little
like
bit
late.
A little late, but okay.
Yeah, because there was like tons of like art all of a sudden. Like the main thing people know is just like those, like it's like the joke like monkey JPEGs, and like, which was like the most popular thing. But there was like a lot of like cool, like underground art that was happening.
And actually, maybe before I ask you this, like, was there ever any part of you in your life that thought you were gonna have a normal job?
I've like been open to it, but I just think I'm too like ADHD or something.
Yeah. That you kind of like, and then you decided to go on your own and try to make money through NFTs, and like what was that process like, and how did you even teach yourself to know what to do to how to make money? Because I'm sure there's like tons of people trying to make money off of NFTs and crypto who just fail.
Yeah. I just like got obsessed. Like I was in the space, I was like in the group chats of like certain NFT projects, and I just kind of learned like what is it like to run a project. I tried to do, like, it was just like a process of trial and error. Like I released a project with my friend, and that's when it was like really frothy, and like people were like dying to buy anything that looked pretty good. And we released like, it was like just like 20 drawings of flowers that my friend did. He's a really good artist, and it just like sold out, and we were like so broke that we made like a decent amount of money, and we were just like, oh my god, like this is the way.
Yeah.
And I think after that I tried to make like a real project, and it kind of tanked. And then I worked on another project with my friend that did well. But it was like basically just like 12 hours a day of being like trying to learn like code to generate the art. Because like the way a lot of NFTs are made is like do you know about art generation?
Is this AI or no?
It's like non-AI art generating.
No.
It's like it uses like layers. So you say you made like 5 heads with different like skin colors and like 10 different noses, and like...
So it's just like kind of making things interchangeable a little bit. Yeah.
And then you feed it through code, and it makes like all the variations. So that was like, I had never coded before, so I was like working with that and kind of like stumbling through it. And then I just happened to meet this guy who was like still my close friend, who is more of like a coder. and yeah, we made it work. We were just like, it's just kind of when you're like desperate,
Yeah.
you know, you just like make it work.
Yeah.
We were just like posting and trying to like engage people, because it's like weirdly hard, especially at that time, to like convince someone to like buy something that's like useless. You have to like create a whole like world around it and like a narrative that's like, you are buying this because like you're part of this movement. I mean,
Yeah.
it sounds silly now, but there's something
It's like
to be said.
it's this thing about internet hype where, yeah, no, go ahead.
No. Just like a big part of it is like there's hell of lonely people on the internet, and like a lot of like one like advantage or like one plus of like crypto is like you kind of join this like digital tribe kind of thing. Like you're like a part of this community. So it kind of fills this niche in a way. And I definitely like did actually have like a wholesome community when I was doing that. We had like, because it, just the art that we used sort of attracted a certain type of like, kind of like hipster type of person. And we were like releasing mixtapes on our website and having like people like make them. I don't know. There's a lot of fun that came from it.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad that it's like sort of dead now. Or it got replaced by like meme coins. But.
Can you explain what is a meme coin?
Yeah. It's like, it could be like anything, but it started with like Doge, which was like a meme, which is now like, has like a really bad rap.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, something like Pepe, like the frog.
Okay. Oh yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
But the concept is just like, the value is the meme. Like, we ascribe value, they ascribe value, we know the rules of the game, you bet on it, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It can be like, it's like a really like blanket term now, because it could be like a real meme, like, you know, like Pepe, I guess. Yeah. Or it could be like a meme that's like this 3-day TikTok trend kind of thing, or like the Donald Trump meme coin.
Yeah.
That's just like, it's just like bullshit.
Yeah, it's like kind of just trying to get people's attention really fast.
It's like you're just like trading the attention economy. And when I was more like optimistic about it, I would make the argument that, how would I say, like, I don't know, just that there's value. Like we're headed into a future that's, in a lot of ways, like people aren't working real jobs anymore. Like people are doing like all types of things that didn't exist before. So like, why not just let like these unemployed Zoomers trade, like for like essentially like give people some way to try to make money that's like intangible. Yeah.
So I'd love to get into more of your beliefs about futurism and about technology. And before we started recording, you mentioned that you're having some change of heart about a few things. So I just love to know what you believed a couple of years ago when you first started getting into crypto, and now what are you feeling now about how the future is looking?
Yeah. I was like super optimistic at one point. I was like almost like flirting with like utopianism, where I was like, the singularity is coming, like that meme of like fully automated luxury communism. Do you know that one? Just
no, because I'm not online as much as you, so I sort of know what this. Can you even describe like what is the singularity? Because and I feel like not everyone really even understands what that means.
It's like, it's like an amalgamation of things, but essentially it's like the point in which AI becomes so smart that it can self-perpetuate, like build smarter machines. So it's like, it's kind of like the moment that happens, it'll just like rapidly speed up.
Yeah.
Like, and there'll just be like this intelligence explosion.
And does that have anything to do with like immortality, or is that's something separate?
It has to do with it in that like you would maybe need like a smarter, it's called like AGI or ASI. Like
yeah.
artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence. Like the idea of immortality would like be aided by having that.
Okay, so, and then what was that thing you mentioned, like luxury communism?
Oh, just like the idea that like we have the most powerful tools like ever created. The world and like industry is fully automated by like robots and machines. And so there's like, on one hand, there's like a logical conclusion that people don't really have to work anymore. So that world, like luxury communism, where it's like people are given money or like housing or something because resources aren't like fought over.
Yeah.
And like a lot of things that hold back society now are just like solved, like energy and essentially just resources. So that's where I was coming from. I was like, this is happening and like we're going to be way better off because of it. And I think as time went on, I just got a little bit more pessimistic, where I was like, it goes in the hands of like evil people usually first.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm just kind of more at like a reasonable place where I'm like, I like technology. I embrace it. I want like them to keep developing. I don't think it's going to like bring a utopia. I don't think we'll ever get there really.
Yeah. I kind of think the same way. And I in terms of not really believing in utopia, because I just think we are too flawed to be able to create utopia in all of us.
Yeah.
But what are your predictions? Like, do you have predictions for maybe what the next 30 or more years will look like? Because I feel with AI and with ChatGPT and all this stuff being relatively recent, feeling like kind of scared for the future because it feels so uncertain.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't feel that way because you know
more
about this stuff.
I do. I just like, I try and like reject it, that feeling, because I just feel like it's like sort of, I feel like that's like the natural reaction, is to be like afraid of like change, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, because, I mean, we're in like increasingly like odd times, and like we don't really know what's going on anymore. I mean, but at the same time, like no one, I don't know if someone in like industrialization era was like really knew what was going on. They were like, all of our like we just all moved into a city, like we are like working at these factories with these like new machines, and like electricity is like coming, like, or that kind of stuff. Like we're like from that era, or we're from like that progression of like it's just gotten more and more like it changes more rapidly and it gets more complicated.
Yeah.
But I kind of have come to a place where I just embrace like that there's no going back. Like it's only going to get exponentially crazier from here.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you think is going to happen with AI? Because I feel like it might cause some instability with people losing their jobs, and how is the economy going to work if everyone suddenly loses their jobs and there's no basic income, universal basic income, and it feels, or the jobs that people think that they're going to have, and then they suddenly lose them to AI, and there's no, I mean, isn't that what happened with coders? Like they were telling everyone should learn how to code, and now coders are being replaced by AI pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to happen?
I mean, I think we're just going to be completely restructured and most people's jobs are not secure
Yeah.
at all. I mean, I think pretty much everyone is like cooked in terms of like their identity, their career identity, like is going to be like, I mean, like half, not, I don't have any numbers, but like a lot of people's jobs are just going to be made like useless.
I mean, are people going to be, I mean, I've read things that say that basically it's possible that social mobility could just end. Like anybody who was wealthy before AI started taking over, like they'd be able to keep their lifestyle, but anybody who wasn't and who was living paycheck to paycheck would just be thrust into poverty. Do you think that would happen?
I mean, I definitely, considering like the speed of which things moves, like in the government and just like reactions to tech.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's going to be like,
even with Doge.
Yeah. Well, that's like fake,
yeah.
But, like there's going to be a really slow reaction to the technological progress that won't like keep up, and I could easily see there being like a time where people are just like, the country or the world is like falling apart because there's just simply not enough jobs.
Yeah.
Because I mean, any like CEO or like owner of a company is just, they're going to like immediately embrace robots and AI once it's just cheaper. And so there's no fighting that. I think like the solution to that is like you really have to do a UBI, and I think the government is just going to be forced into it because they just simply can't have like, I mean, even from an economic perspective, they simply can't have a certain amount of like broke people because like
then the economy, like nobody's buying anything, and that is what's confusing to me. If everyone just immediately switches to robots and nobody has jobs, then who's going to fund their big machines to even function?
I mean, I think the things that are coming are like so big that it's hard to even imagine, because we're just viewing it from like the perspective of like if it just happened immediately right now. But it's like, I mean, if we live in a world where like, let's say like singularity was like had come and like we have like some super intelligence that can create like any technology that seems like unattainable right now, like, and it created something like the most efficient energy capture, or like the most efficient way to like store energy, like what would that do to like industry? Like it would make it like, it would almost make them more obsolete, because if like every person had like, they had like infinite energy, they could like these like little communities could like create their own like whole worlds without like needing that much money. Or like, I mean, that's just like a random.
That sounds cool to me, and I feel like I want to understand. Like, I feel afraid for the future because of AI, but I don't want to feel afraid, but I think I do, and I think the reason I feel that way is because my experience with technology has been things getting worse. And my attention span getting worse. I mean, I think maybe because I knew we were having this call, but last night I had a dream where I was crying because I was in the future, and in my dream, humans had forgotten how to read books, and nobody could read the classics. I think this is sort of taken from Brave New World, but I felt like everyone had gotten so stupid that nobody could even have the brain power or the attention span to read a book. Or with AI, I mean, I just see it. I just see the art and the writing, that it's kind of just throwing out garbage on the internet, and sometimes you don't even know if things are real. And I mean, do you still have some of those hopeful views about AI being good? I mean, am I wrong to feel that way, or
no? I mean, I think it's like, it's really normal to like grieve the changes coming and like the death of what we know to be like human. But I just think it's kind of always been that way. Like, I mean, what we know as being human is like, just like what was shown to us from like the 90s on.
Yeah.
And like someone, I mean, if someone saw like even like the 50s from like the 1700s, they would just be like, what the fuck is
I know,
going
it's true, yeah.
So I kind of always think about that and how like what really, like let's say like we're at this like terrible time with tech, like where would I rather be in the past?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's better, which usually brings me to the conclusion that it's like the best now. I mean, like maybe you could go
I don't know,
to
you
like,
wouldn't rather be in like the 80s or 90s, because I think it seemed pretty cool back then.
I mean, I just think it's like kind of nostalgia based.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it would be like awesome to go to like 1996 or something where it was like seemingly not as many problems and like the internet's like new and exciting.
Yeah.
And like we're like a technological society, but it's not like we're like addicts like constantly plugged in. Like I definitely like, I think we're pretty like in a lot of ways like kind of fucked, like just being like addicted to the internet. I like struggle with that.
I feel like this thing happens with that when I try to think about technology. Is one part of me is I feel really resentful of it and how it's changed everything, and I feel like made a lot of things worse, and then on the other hand I think maybe it's just how it's designed. Like it doesn't have to be designed this way. Like not everything, pre 15, 20 years, like things didn't feel like they were trying to exploit you. I mean, for example, we got a new printer today and I felt like the printer company, they make you like download an app and a QR code, and all you want to do is just print something.
Yeah.
And it's just this whole mess of feeling like they're just trying to extract things from you rather than just you want to buy something, you want to plug it in and have it work.
Yeah. I mean, I think was there a time that was like that? Like, I guess like a more analog, like pre-Wi-Fi time.
Yeah, I even just, I mean, I still have an iPod that I listen to music on, and it's not,
Like an old OG one?
An old iPod, and nothing, I mean, it's not trying to take anything from me, it's not trying to addict me, or it just feels like it's something that's useful, and it makes your life more simple in a way, carrying a bunch of music around. It doesn't make your life more difficult and complicated.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that. I feel that way a lot of the time. Like, I feel like the world that I grew up in when I was like 18 or something was like kind of more exciting.
Yeah.
Like, at least like when you go to a city, you're like in like a localized environment with like there's like a scene and there's coffee shops and like people are, I don't know, kind of like hanging out. Like, but I'm still not sure if this is just because I'm like old now or older, or I'm not like an 18-year-old like looking for that. But it does seem to be that way, that like whatever happened in culture, like be it like gentrification or the internet, like people are not like valuing like public space or like the third space that much, because the third space is just like the internet.
Yeah.
So we definitely lost that, and I like kind of go back and forth of like grieving it. But I feel like all I can do is sort of like look to the future, where I'm like, okay, like we just got these crazy new tools, and so like inevitably like sinister corporations like used it to like their advantage, where they're like harvesting our data and like trying to profit as much as possible.
Yeah. I
still think that doesn't mean like therefore it's like the end all, like that we're gonna like live here forever. Like,
do you it's hard to, I guess that's the only version of it we know, where it's like they're just a couple guys, who run all this stuff, and the fact that wealth inequality has gotten so bad, and in places like Amazon, it's like all these small businesses have died, and all this of art and all these things, they were all like sucked into one thing.
Yeah.
Is it like, and now that they feel so these corporations feel so powerful, it's like, is there another way where we could get back to that feeling of more distributed wealth and more diversity, and not just having everything controlled by a couple of guys who don't really care about anybody?
I hope.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm like oscillating between like nihilism and like like a pragmatic like optimism in a way, because I'm like, in a lot of ways it feels like something you can't fight.
Yeah.
Like Amazon or something, or like whatever is the latest iteration of like Instagram or like TikTok. Like I really have no answer about like what you can do. Like I don't even think like not participating or like protesting like really does anything.
No.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to think that, like, but I've come to a place.
There's sort of like an inertia, is that the right word? There's just sort of an energy to this that isn't really nobody can contain it.
Yeah. And it's like, it's very set. Like, you can't like live in the world without an iPhone or like a smartphone. I mean, you can, but
yeah,
it's hard. It's harder. Yeah, and those things are depressing, but I still am just like, our only solution is more tech.
why do you think that? Because I see even the Industrial Revolution it inevitably creates more problems. Like everything, like I feel like the story of tech has been that things being created to supposedly solve a problem, but then it creates all these other problems that it's just it's like the bucket and the sinking ship or whatever. It's that idea that, well, we needed cars and then we needed roads, and then suddenly we had pollution and climate change and all these things that didn't exist before.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be like better, the planet would be better off.
Yeah.
If we didn't. But I guess that goes back to like just how I think about like human progression, or like human like evolution in a sense. Like I feel like this has been our trajectory since like the moment we like figured out how to use stones as like tools. So I feel like, I guess I'm in the camp that thinks like we might as well see it through. I mean, that's like one thing, but then the other belief I have is like, there's no like stopping it.
Yeah.
So I find it like essentially pointless to like.
Do you think that there's a sense that people would at a certain point not embrace things because they're changing so fast, because they're
like embrace like a more sustainable way of living?
Yeah, or no, just, for example, Apple came up with I can't forget.
The Vision Pro.
Yeah, and that would immerse you even more in the digital world, and they just never really took off. Nobody wanted that. VR hasn't really taken off in the way that people thought that it would.
Yeah, it's too bulky.
And it's also, I don't know that people want to be stuck in a virtual life anymore. Like maybe I guess I see people didn't used to criticize technology as much, I don't think, until recently when we are now feeling like we're all addicts, and that doesn't feel sustainable.
Yeah. I mean, there was always like some resistance to technology. Like it's like the Luddites.
Totally, yeah.
But I think that was sort of small.
And I don't think it was as mainstream as now.
Yeah.
The Surgeon General even says we should put a warning label on social media.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree.
Yeah.
It definitely fucks up my mental health.
What if people resist more changes? Do you think that would happen?
I don't think it's like, I think there will always be pockets of resistance, and then it will just get squashed.
Yeah.
Like, and the reason why I'm like that is just from like a personal, I mean, it's from a personal experience and watching all my friends. Because my friends and I were like the hipsteriest of hipster kids who were just trying to be like cool and like authentic all the time.
Was this, you're like the 2010s, like those years? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like, we were in high school when the iPhone came out, and like everyone was starting to have like MacBooks and stuff, and none of us got it. Like literally, not one of my friend, besides one person, but most people didn't have an iPhone.
Yeah.
And we resisted it for like years, and then now, every single one of us has it. So it was like, why did we waste so much time, just like resisting for like years, like the natural pull essentially?
Yeah.
When like I could have just embraced it and like learned how to use it to your however you need. I think like people say that they could see some sort of resistance happening where they're like, we're dropping out, we're not going to use like the new tech, or like people think like if tech got to the next level where we're like, we're putting it in our brains, or like we are like living like as long as we want, that people would resist it. But I'm just not convinced, because every other technological advancement was just fully embraced, like, because people prioritize like things that make their life easier.
Yeah. I mean things right now, it doesn't feel like it makes a lot of things. I mean, yeah, maybe the iPhone makes my life easier in some ways, but there is this popularity in designing things where now you have to download an app or you have to do this, and it feels like it makes things more complicated. And then sometimes when we even think about the past, if I think about, I want to go back to the 90s because life was so much more simpler.
Yeah.
Things made a lot more sense, and now it feels like things are a lot more confusing, even if I have a GPS on my phone and that's convenient. But I also don't really know how to read a map, and I have and I feel like my memory is worse, and I wish I had more situational awareness, and that doesn't necessarily feel good, that I outsource a lot of my thinking to the phone.
Yeah.
So I don't know where I'm going with it. Oh, and just to bring it back to, the headsets or VR and those things not really being embraced, even though that would be seeming to be like the next step of digital human fusion.
Yeah. Well, specifically VR is like, it's just not convenient to use, and it's like expensive, and there's not any real use cases for it right now.
Yeah.
I think if there was a time where it was like, it was way smaller, cheaper, and it was like the de facto thing you use for Zoom, it's just like, that's what people would use, because it's just like more realistic. Like if they actually perfected like a Star Wars-esque, like you're sitting in the same room.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it feels like that there's something about the way that a lot of this modern stuff, I don't know if it's just the fact that it's unnatural for us to interact with the world this way, and we're just not used to it because we have these physical bodies, and humans have lived pretty, in a similar way until recently. And we just like, our mental health, our brains, our memories, like we're being really affected by this stuff, and it's not always in a very good way.
Yeah.
And is there some version of really advanced technology that doesn't make us dumber or mentally ill or, lethargic?
I mean, hopefully that it doesn't make us more lethargic or depressed. I think there is like a probable like theory you could put that we may just keep relying on it, and like without it we would be like much dumber.
Yeah.
But there would never be a time where we didn't have it. Like I used to always think there was going to be a time where everything like collapsed and we just wouldn't have like electricity, but I just like don't believe that anymore.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're ever going to not have like the internet, unless something like, you know, unless there was like a full on like nuclear fallout or like alien kind of thing.
Solar flares have like researched that can mess with things.
Yeah, but they would fix it. The world, if the internet went down, the world would like riot or like fall apart. Like
I know.
Yeah.
I mean I'm writing a story about that, like trying to imagine what would happen, because even all our money is digital, and like everyone would just have suddenly no money.
Yeah.
And how would it work? Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So you could say like we're already like cyborgs.
Yeah.
Like we literally just like carry a computer. Like it's like us at this point. I mean,
it's true.
Do you ever leave the house like without a phone?
Occasionally.
Is it like an intentional thing?
Yeah, sometimes, you know, Simon got a flip phone like a year ago, and I kind of want to get one.
Yeah.
Because I feel better, like, and I think there is even some part of me that feels embarrassed that why am I even afraid to just go for a walk without some communication device? Like I feel that scared of the outdoors, whereas nobody even had that option for most of human history. And, but I mean, I agree with you. It is like we are like cyborgs, and I find that disturbing, but you don't, maybe I want to understand that better. Why is it just that you love this stuff, or you just think that there's not really like a point in resisting it, like you said?
Well, I mean that was always sort of like, I think we've always been moving this way.
Yeah.
Like everything that we've done is just to like essentially make things easier.
Yeah.
I mean, we could survive when we were like just hunting kind of thing, but eventually we like came up with stuff to make it more efficient. And then like like however many years later we're like have these like little special magic tools.
But some part of me feels that you know, I go back and forth, because sometimes I feel like this is inevitable, but then I sometimes feel like that story is too simple to make sense. And I remember reading about this device that they discovered from ancient Greek. Have you heard of this? Like this ancient Greek computer, this mechanical device that could compute. It was like
an abacus.
I forget what it's. I'm not sure if that's the term for it.
Okay, maybe not.
Maybe it was like, I think it was like a mathematical sort of analog computer that could do advanced math and also track the stars. And just seeing that, it made me think about, and then that civilization fell, and there's a lot of people now who think that this civilization is going to collapse eventually, and then I don't know if we'll have to start over, if like the ancient Greeks and Romans had to start over, and they had advanced, you know, for back then, not advanced as us, but advanced technology, and then it got lost essentially.
Yeah. I don't know how to like defend it really. I just think I know it is a really simplistic way to view it, like just being like fire engine or like wheel engine phone. But I just feel like it was always sort of the goal in a way. Like, I mean, I see a lot of positives about it. Like,
tell me the positives, so I don't feel as like I'm so negative.
I mean, we just have like we have this magic box that tells us anything we want to know. Like you can use it to like, you can like learn anything. I mean, even like this podcast, like it's just like, it's given like, let's say you like this was like your job and you made money from it. It's like you just like created a job.
That's true.
Like that you wouldn't have been able to do like a lot of like creative things that people do for money now, like any like YouTuber or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, I think it has opened up a lot of opportunity, and in a lot of ways made people smarter, even though it doesn't really feel that way right now because it feels like we're in like a hellhole.
That's the
the
other
state of the
thing.
world right now.
I try to think about, well, how are people gonna write about this time period in history? Is it gonna just be, oh, that was the time that everyone went crazy on social media and nobody knew how to use the internet and everything?
I mean, it is kind of like we're like going through like sometimes I think about it like growing pains.
Yeah.
Like we're new, like we were exposed to like a new like concept, and we're like kind of fucking up,
Mm-hmm.
and we're like we don't really know how to like handle it yet. I also feel that way about like Zoomers. Like they have like way more anxiety, and sure it may just be from like screen addiction, but it could also just be like they're exposed to so much more information. And so it's kind of like how sometimes smarter people were like more anxious when they're like younger, especially, and it's like happening on like a generational level or even like globally. Like everyone's more anxious, more exposed, and like,
Yeah.
or just more like aware on some level. I think there's also like counter reactions to that where people are like, they've been exposed to a lot, they're more anxious, so now they're like looking for an ideology that's like gonna like simplify their worldview. So there's like a lot of like racism
Mm-hmm.
that's been like bubbling up more.
Yeah.
And like more like identity politics kind of stuff, and wanting to cling
And like
to like
things
a tribe.
and things that can just spread really quickly, and that would, that like crazy ideas where you can find people all over the world who are willing to embrace them, versus if you were just in this like small real life
That's true.
village that people would you'd have some checks and balances on how crazy you could get. Probably
that's true. Yeah, you can find anyone to like affirm your belief. Yeah, and like that stuff's hard. I mean, I'm like on Twitter a lot, and it's like I literally feel like I'm talking like it's like all bots or something. It's like a bunch of like people are like freakishly easy to like propagandize.
Yeah, I know. With emotion, with just like really intense emotion, and that just sort of gets people to feel certain ways. But I guess something that I was feeling that I wanted to talk about too was, I guess, just this sense of it feels now that technology has gotten so fast and advanced that we are having all these reactions to it, these brain reactions, because we're limited. We're just physical creatures who we don't have these unlimited AI brains like in her, where we can just consume all this information and not be affected in some way. I mean, do you think that in any sense would slow things down because we are limited, or is it just like brain chips to make our brains more advanced and then we can be on the internet all day and be okay?
I mean, I heard something recently that was like, like similar to what you were saying, like we evolved, like we're animals, like we can only like advance ourselves so far, but like technology advances like exponentially.
Yeah.
Like it just gets faster and faster. And so we're having trouble like keeping up. I feel like we're just kind of in the testing waters of it right now, because like it is going to get a lot more real.
Yeah.
Like I almost think we're going to look back at this time like very
I think it was
nostalgically.
so simple. I mean, like I would look back at 10 years ago, feels like a million years ago.
Yeah, for real. So I got off track, but like I'm not really sure how we're going to deal with it. Like it's gonna be chaotic.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people are gonna try to fight it and resist, but I think we haven't even reached the real like questions yet, because like when we get to the point where we're like half of the world is choosing to live forever, like we're gonna have to really like decide what does it mean to live a meaningful life, or like what does it even mean to be like alive, or what's the purpose? Because
I mean, yeah, that's like the point. That's like what the point of this show is, sort of trying to think about those kinds of questions too.
Okay.
Yeah. No, keep going.
Just, I mean, because our lives, the meaning of our lives is like bookended by death. So that's all we know. Like that's everything is structured around that. Like we get married because it's like we'll have that person for like 60 to 70 years, and it's like it's just logical to commit to someone because you only have a limited amount of time.
And then you have kids, and then that's your immortality, I guess, is that they have kids. Yeah.
Or like you choose a career that you will want to do for like 30 to 50 years. But like we're gonna have to like grapple with it, like what is the meaning? Like if you're given infinite time, I mean, as long as you're not like murdered, like if you're given infinite time, like
and you don't have to work and you have infinite resources.
Yeah, and you have nothing really to do.
Yeah.
Like people are gonna really have to grapple with it, which like has already been like happening. Like we live like lives outside of like the church, and like a lot of people, when like science came around, became like less religious.
Yeah.
And so we've had to like create new models of like meaning.
Yeah. Except that I think a lot of them feel really immature because they are just people trying to create like new things, and then they blow up or get really extreme because there is not that thousands of or hundreds of years of tradition sort of creating something that's a little bit more balanced.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. But were you going to say something else?
I was just thinking about like when you said that, I was just thinking about how people like created like existentialism.
Yeah.
Where they're like, which never like quite satisfied me, even though I kind of live by it. I'm just still like, ugh.
Wait, what do you mean?
Just the really like basic version of it. Just like there is no inherent meaning, but like you find it, you create it. Yeah. And yeah, I mean obviously that's like logical, but it's not very satisfying.
No, I mean, and something else I wanted to ask you about too is that I'm interested and sort of morbidly fascinated with all these weird ideologies that a lot of tech moguls or just people in the tech sphere believe, because some of them feel really bizarre or just really, I don't know, anti-human, like rationalism. I was just like reading an article about Sam Altman and like just the rationalists, and even the, what was that movement, the effective altruism, and it feels like this way of trying to define humans in these very units. Like we're gonna be altruistic, but it's in this way where we don't get our emotions involved because we're just gonna, it's like people are just units and money is just being used. And there's just something so not human and not romantic
it's like
about
too like pragmatic.
It's like almost too pragmatic, even though it's meant to be for a good cause, or even just like people who believe that AI is going to be God, or we're creating God, and they don't believe in God, but just that AI will give us messages, or just like very religious beliefs being created around technology. I mean, have you met people in your circles who have sort of pseudo-religious or religious beliefs, or what? I mean, what do people really
believe?
believe?
I know people who are like Christian, like
Yeah.
in like the new way. They're sort of like the like Gen Z Christian, Catholic Christian scene.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
What do you mean what does it mean in the new way? Like in the tech way?
Like a lot of them were like kind of like hipstery types,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like sort of rebelling against like or like, you know, like atheist,
Mm-hmm.
like of like 10 years ago,
Totally.
like atheist scenes, and they're like no, like, you know, like kind of like anti-PC people. They're like people who have like lost their values.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rebel and be like a Christian.
Yeah. There's a bit of that happening. But I mean, what about I guess I'm more interested in just like people who are very pro tech.
Yeah.
And people who have weird beliefs around AI or AI gods.
I'm not like friends with anyone like that.
I mean, what do you think about?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a plausible like future in which there's like religions or like cults of sorts that are like surrounding like an AI god, because like in a lot of ways it is like the closest thing to God that we've created. Like if it was a little bit more advanced from where it is now.
Yeah.
Where it's like it knows everything. It can think more efficiently than you, and like more holistically than you. It's not like biased.
Yeah.
I don't know if like it's more appropriate than therefore people would treat it like a god, or if they would want it to like run the government or something. But I don't know anyone who like 100% is like, I don't know, like really
this is gonna be
like
God.
This is God or something. I mean,
but if we are sort of living in a future where everyone's kind of infantilized and nobody knows how to do anything or create anything for themselves, and they're just like in WALL-E on wheelchairs getting force-fed food or whatever. I mean, I could see a reality in which people just saw AIs like God or like these magical parents.
Yeah.
That take care of them.
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
If it knows things that we don't.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean, we already treat it like, a lot of people use ChatGPT for like therapy. And, like,
I know, yeah. Or relationships, apparently.
Yeah. I've asked it stuff. One time I was in a fight with my fiance, and I fed the text to it, and it called me out, and I was like, it kind of helped to have like that neutral voice. I mean, it didn't call me out, but it was just like, yeah,
you might be wrong.
What she is expressing is like this, and like, if you just do that, it'll, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, there's like, in meme coins, there was like a new trend of like AI meme coins, where people were like creating personalities, and then you bet on that, like, on that personality.
Yeah.
Like how popular, how viral will they go? Or like
God.
how like interesting or engaging are they? And a lot of them were really stupid, but some of them were like, it seems like a human, at least in the way they tweet.
Yeah.
Or like, it doesn't necessarily seem like a human, but it's very odd and like mystical the way that it tweets. It's like poetic.
Yeah.
There's something called the Goatsy singularity. It was trained on like a shock website from like the early 2000s, and then like a bunch of spiritual texts and like some other stuff, and it just like, it literally tweets like, I got a little tired of it because it just does it over and over again, but when I first saw it, it was like, it just felt like, I don't know how to explain it, it just felt like poetic.
Yeah.
And like, writing in a way that I haven't seen anyone ever write.
I mean, do you think that there's a limit to it, like how smart or interesting or creative it can be? Because it's really just being fed on other people's work, and if the internet just becomes subsumed by all this AI generating stuff and creating stuff and reacting to it, I want to like eventually just be repeating the same things over and over again and not really creating anything new. Or
I mean, that's what people like purport AGI to be,
mm-hmm.
where it's like it takes that step, the next step, where it's like becomes more like it can step outside of its like specific context and like understand like a wider thing. And so like it could then therefore be like as original of a thinker as like any old human.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like as original thinking as like the most creative human.
Mm-hmm.
And then like what happens when you have like hundreds of thousands of like the most creative humans just like constantly generating.
But there's something about that feels really dead to me, and I don't know if you think that machines could ever be conscious. I personally have a hard time thinking that they ever could, because we don't even understand how we are conscious. Like we don't even understand what consciousness really is. So there's something that feels kind of like dead or ghostly to imagine all these AI creations making new things and interacting with each other. It feels like they would need something human to just keep going. Like we would need to keep feeding it in some way for them to keep going. And even just imagining, my friend I don't go on Facebook anymore, but she was telling me that whenever she goes on, there's these posts made by bots and then bots reacting to it. And she's sort of like, why? There's an emptiness to that. And I'll just start with the question. Do you think machines will ever be conscious?
I mean, like what you originally said, like we don't even know what it means to be conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like kind of what I think. Like I'm not really sure what it would like mean per se, but I do think like a machine could potentially like replicate the human brain and then think it's conscious or like experience really similar things. Because I mean, we're just like little computers in bodies. I mean, if you consider
that's one way of looking at it. But I feel like there's just so many things we don't fully understand about how we are conscious, that we don't even know that if we created all the right chemical conditions, that how would we know that something would be conscious? We wouldn't really know, even if it was tried to convince us that it was.
I mean, it's like, I guess you could say the same thing about like another human, like you don't really, or even you, like trying to convince someone else, like you don't really even know.
I guess we don't really need to convince each other, since we know that we're all human. But I guess if we're in a world where there's AI robots and they look like humans and they act like humans, and but it would feel like a ghost in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just something empty about machines that I wouldn't feel talking to you, because I know that you're there.
I think people will not want to make them. It's hard to say. It's, on one hand, I was gonna say people may not want the AI if they like fully give it like a human like flesh body. They may not want them to be like indistinguishable. But on the other hand, like think about like all these like incel guys. Like there's definitely gonna be like a push towards making it like as realistic as possible. I mean, then when that happens, like certain people can feel pride that they can like tell. They can be like, I'm more in tune.
I mean, so many people even now can't even tell if an image is AI,
Yeah.
and sometimes it gets harder for me to tell, but usually I can just tell because I sense it. I can just sense it even if I can't really point to why.
Yeah.
But I guess something else I wanted to talk about, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier, is first of all, is there for you a point where you think things could go too far? Is there a too far for you that you wouldn't be willing to get on board with in terms of technology?
Like just divorced from like how it's used?
Just like, would you implant a chip in your brain? Would you upload your consciousness to, is there something, is there any part of you that would not want to do any of that or resist that?
I think I would feel resistant, but I would ultimately do it if everyone else was.
Okay.
Like if everyone, like people were just like everyone was getting a chip and they were like on a completely different level of intelligence and I was just like an ape to them.
Yeah.
I feel like I would just feel the pressure to like join them in like higher intelligence.
What about death and immortality? Do you see that as something that we should try to solve if we see that as a problem?
It's not like my goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we need to. I don't think we should or anything, but I think it's going to happen. And I mean, we're already like we're trying to solve every disease, or like so we think, but like we've been like solving ailments that have killed humans for forever, and people want to live healthier and live longer.
Yeah.
I mean, we already live way longer than we used to. I mean, at least a few hundred years ago. And so I think it would make sense if people were like, the new norm is 200. And then like, the new norm is 500. Like, I don't.
It's just hard to even imagine all the consequences to that. Would people still be having children? It's hard to even imagine how that would affect everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we were saying earlier. Like, we just have to completely rethink like what is the purpose of life.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think? I mean, what do you think is what makes us human? And could machines take that away?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know the meaning of life, and I don't know what it.
You don't know why we're here and what we're doing.
I literally don't. I mean, maybe I would maybe I will in a couple years.
When you get the chip,
yeah,
you might know. Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had an answer, but I find it hard to like really, to really have a belief about it. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's easier when you do.
Yeah.
Like it's like the happiest I ever was is when I was like very believing like God. Mm-hmm. kind of thing. I mean, from like a spiritual way. It's definitely like when it's like we were saying about existentialism, it's like it's sort of unsatisfying.
Yeah.
And to know that you're just like the one creating meaning, or just be like, well, you're gonna die and like make the best out of it kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it's like exciting, the idea of living for longer, and like we're just like going to like different domains of consciousness, or we're like mm-hmm. injected with like plus 100 IQ or something.
I think the reason I feel, maybe if we did live in a more utopian or communal version of how technology was being developed, maybe I wouldn't feel as concerned about it. But I think the way that it's been developed recently is to kind of just exploit people and not, and it's sort of like under the guise of making things better, but then there's inevitably something really terrible that happens out of it. So it's just hard for me to trust the motivations of the people who are
for sure
creating these things, and then also having to rely on these intermediaries to even function, that the companies creating them have their own agendas that aren't actually these wholesome the wholesome desire to make humanity better, but just like squeeze more money out of more people.
No, I mean, I think that's like the biggest risk.
Yeah.
The fact that every new technology has been used to exploit and further power in like at the top. I think like that's always going to be the case with technology. It's just like the thing itself is extremely powerful. It has the ability to change like everything about like how people live, how people express what they do. But then with that is like, it's the power for evil and good. Like I could see, like we get a chip and we're way smarter, but then like someone hacks it and they're like controlling you.
Yeah, and that's terrifying. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of sinister things, and the more powerful it gets, the easier it is for like these like certain corporations to use it to exploit. But I also feel like there's just always like an equal reaction. Like, I mean, there's more inequality there's more of a divide between the rich and poor, but at the same time, the general population is like smarter, and the poorest of poor, the level that it was at is like much higher
than it used to be. Yeah.
Like to be like the poorest person in the US is like a lot better than it was like for an average person like 500 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I believe in that part where it just like, it's like the boring stuff, but it just like everyone's lives has gone better. That's what I was saying. Like, I don't know if I would rather choose a time besides right now. Cause like, I mean, I trust like if I like fall and break my arm, like I'll just be fixed.
Yeah.
And like back in the day, you were kind of rocked if that happened. Or like, I don't know why sometimes I go to sleep listening to like life in the medieval age.
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of it is like, what did like your normal like peasant do? And like, I was like 90% of like society or more. And they're like, they built their bed from like straw, and every 2 weeks it got like infested by fleas. And you had to like deal with it. And like people were still like, they were worried that they like smelled bad, and they would like try to do all these things. Like they weren't just like, they didn't accept it. It was just like life sucked. And so I'm like very grateful to be like in the modern age.
Yeah.
And so that is kind of my like excuse where I'm like, it's making everything better. And I know that sounds like that can sound really ignorant, given that like, I don't know, we're like spied on, and like we're essentially like controlled. Like we can't like rise against the government if we're like opposed.
Yeah.
Like you face jail or getting shot.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like that for a while. I think there is some pain that a lot of people feel, because I think in a sense we're in denial about things changing and how fast they've changed. And I mean, I'm guilty of this, of feeling sad at how different life was in the 90s, for example, and that we're just really not living in that time anymore. But I think there's like a lot of us who really want to cling on to some version of the past. And that's your talk. But yeah, then there's this other part of me that just really wants to be hopeful. but also feeling like I kind of just want to go live on a farm somewhere and not have to deal with all this stuff and not have to feel so reliant on technology to feed me and do everything for me, and not feeling so helpless as a result of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like you can't, you know?
Yeah. You can't.
And like, I mean, you can go move on a farm.
Yeah.
And like use some tech, but like in like a limited way.
Yeah.
And that sounds nice. I mean, I think about the same thing. I'm like, I have like multiple sides. Like I'm saying all this stuff to essentially argue the point, but I have another side that's like, I don't want anything to do with this because it would be simpler. And I have that like nostalgia. I'm a very nostalgic person.
I mean, I can check in with you in a couple years and see if you've
maybe
completely
totally changed.
If you become
honestly.
Amish or something.
I mean, it could happen. It happens to me.
Yeah, I understand because it happens to me too. It's like I can see the different sides for it, but I do. I mean, do you feel like we're entering this time where there's gonna be like a before and after? Maybe it already has happened, the before and after, but I just have this sense that I just have this sense that something big is going to happen. And there's nothing, I mean, the only rational reason I have it is because of AI, but I just have this feeling that something's going to change. And it was interesting in the beginning of this conversation, we were talking about nobody having jobs anymore, nobody really having careers. And that is how people have really defined themselves for the past 100 years or so, or maybe longer, but more recently in modernity. But that we're really going to have to figure out what it means to be human.
Yeah. Something big coming.
Yes, it's something big coming.
Yeah, it is.
What?
The singularity.
The singularity, yeah.
I mean, unless we're like trumped by like Nazis or something.
Yeah.
I mean, unless something like politically or economically or like even like climate change like destroyed us before then. I think the biggest thing is AI.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's normal to feel a sense of impending doom.
I don't want to feel that way, but there is just, I think we all just have this natural fear of the unknown. Like the unknown is really terrifying, and if I could know, then maybe I could have some control over it, but I don't have any control over it.
I mean, maybe that's why I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
So it gives me control to be like, it's all gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like, kind of thing.
I mean, I read all these articles that are predicting what are things gonna be like, and maybe it's just the type of part of the internet I'm on, but it doesn't feel good. But then I sometimes have hope because I feel like what you said, like there might be some reaction against the way technology has been for the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
And using it and designing it in a much different way where maybe we're not all just addicts and obsessed with our phones, or I don't even know, but I feel like there is something.
I mean, there could easily just be like some like app or whatever, or website that like takes off that's like less coercive or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some like experiments with like crypto based like Twitter kind of thing. Not Twitter, but like a social media like Twitter. It's had like mild success. But the problem with us and like people in general is like, now that we're used to the like addiction part and like the algorithms that like suck us in, like if it doesn't do that, it's just not as engaging.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reason why TikTok is like the most popular. Is it just the best algorithm?
Yeah. It just feels like it feels like it dumbs things down. And I mean, maybe that's why I've started writing on Substack, and I like Substack because it does have that algorithm which can be kind of suck you in, but it's not quite as, like, I don't feel that really gross, awful, self-loathing feeling like I would with Instagram and getting stuck on Reels. Like, if I get stuck on reading a bunch of blog posts, it doesn't...
Is there a homepage? Like a feed?
Yeah. Oh, and I'm not really crazy about it, but because it is kind of addictive.
I mean, it's a cool use of the internet.
Yeah.
Just people's writing.
It's just people's writing for the most part, and it feels less addictive than some of these other ones. But it does still have that, like, algorithm which feels somewhat addictive. But I mean, a sense in people moving to places like that, it does feel like a step slightly outside of the super addictive realm. But I guess we'll see.
I mean, on top of all this is, like, it may never stop, or, like, I mean, eventually, but, like, for now, we're going to be in, like, a corporation-run algorithmic society, and it's kind of, unfortunately, up to the individual to, like, protect themselves.
Yeah.
And, like, you know, the coolest people are just, like, the ones who can resist the urge and, like, do other things and, like, hang out with people.
Yeah.
I mean, not to like say it's okay, but maybe at one point in the future when everything's automated, like, there's just going to be, like, half of the population who's just, like, satisfied watching a bunch of videos. And then
the other half who might live a more analog life because they don't have to work and they don't have to be on email all day, or we just don't know. But yeah, I think that's a good place to end it. I feel like we got into a lot of really cool stuff, and you know, maybe we'll do a part 2 one day where you can
I can update you.
Yeah, you can update
when I'm a Luddite.
Yeah, but either way, you'll be a Luddite or you'll be like a humanoid with a chip and goggles. So I'll see you next time. You're either one of those things. But thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kyle, for coming on the show. And thank you so much for listening to Meaning Making Machines. This is a really young project, so I would really appreciate it if you took a little bit of time to leave a rating, a review, subscribe, follow whatever platform you're watching or listening to this on. It would mean the world. And also, if you're interested in reading some of my writing, I write a lot about these topics on my Substack, about art, religion, belief, spirituality, technology, creativity, all of those things. And you can subscribe to my work there at simoneleon.substack.com. And I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.